Hey guys, how are things? Um, I'm in the backyard here, so you might hear birds of prey squawking or whatever, but if you do, that's what's going on. Um, we're going to talk to you today about knives. As you know, it's my favourite subject anyhow, and for good reason. After a stick and stone, it's probably the oldest tool known to man, and it's still to this day a very misunderstood tool. Um, what we're going to discuss today is stick tang knives, Mora knives, Finnish puukos, that kind of a knife, and just an interesting conversation that I had with Kelly Harleton about full tang knives, and there is some misconception of full tang knives. So just in case, so we're all on the same hymn sheet, this is a knife made by Rob Evans. It's an absolutely fantastic knife, very, very strong construction. All the usuals. It's about palm width. The blade handle is about the same again. Large, comfortable handle, and a 90-degree spine all the way across this. And just to demonstrate that, all the way along, this will throw an incredible spark. And a 90-degree spine is a very important thing in a bushcraft or survival knife. However, that's not to say that a knife can't function as a survival knife, should it be a stick tang knife, or indeed a knife. A lot of these knives, now I have sharpened the spine on this here, okay, but down here it's not really sharp, okay, that's the way it comes out of the factory. They have a kind of a chamfered edge on this Kellam puuko. This one here, this is the laminated Mora, and this does not strike a spark anywhere, okay, not even remotely does it. That said, it doesn't mean that it is a defunct survival knife or bushcraft knife. So anybody that follows me, you know that I generally teach two methods of ignition with a ferrotherium rod. Now the first method, which will not work with this at all, just put this down here in case it gets blown away, it's very windy and I hope you can hear me, but the first method is we anchor our hand and we draw this, okay. As you can see, there is absolutely nothing happening here, and if we take our Rob Evans knife, I am anchoring my hand here and I draw, and as you can see, that's showering sparks. Fantastic knife. I use this knife so much, it's absolutely one of my favourite knives. Now, so that method where our hand is anchored and we draw the ferro rod, it serves for two good purposes. One, it stops us of spreading our flash tinder all over the place, and number two, it's very, very good at producing a large flood of hot sparks. Now, method number two is a Morse-Kahansky method. I'm just going to get down on my knees here on the ground and show you. So, method number two, I've got a really up here because it's incredibly windy. We know that this knife can't strike a ferro rod, it really can't, okay, but there is a caveat. The very tip of the knife, if we put our thumb here like this, and we can draw, even with a blade that has no 90-degree spine. So we're going to use this here now to ignite this cotton ball. So using that method, we holding the knife in our hand, we're anchoring the tip into our ferro rod and we're driving forward, okay? And that will produce a very hot spark, as you can see. So it's just really to show you that there is a way out of striking a ferro rod with a knife that cannot do it anywhere along the spine at all. We always have that tip that we can use. So I'll just demonstrate it once more, because you can see now there's no tinder in the way. This tip is in the center of it and we're pushing with our thumb, okay, with that tip like that. And it gives us quite a hot spark, because we're getting a lot of leverage into it. Okay, so it means that your knife that doesn't have a 90-degree spine is not surplus to requirement entirely at all. Now, getting back to the discussion I had with Kelly Harlton. Kelly Harlton being probably Moore's most famous and well-known student. Moore's Kahansky. And when I was discussing this with Kelly at the Bushcraft Symposium, excuse me, when Moore's discussed a full tang knife, we automatically assume a broad full tang knife, something like this, okay, which is, you know, when I think about this knife, it's fantastic. So the full tang, this blade ends here into the handle, and this blade continues, the handle continues in a full unskeletonized version, and the only holes that are in this tang is 1, 2 and 3, and this is the most superior construction that you can have for a survival knife. And remember, when we're talking about survival knives, we have to understand that what are the consequences should our knife break, and the consequences in a survival scenario are catastrophic. That's not to say that a knife like this can't be used as a survival knife, but there are a couple of caveats. One, it would have to be used in a more experienced hand, because in survival scenarios our fine motor skills go down and we become more abusive and rough with our tools. Another thing is, I would say, to be able to use one of these in a survival scenario, you do have to know what its breaking point is. So you probably need to have broken one of these to understand when you have to pull back a little bit on the gas. But this stick tang, if you can imagine, under this timber there's a tail, like a rat's tail I suppose, narrowing and tapering down to here, and it comes through and protrudes here at the very end. So there is a tang going all the way through, and that's in fact what Morris meant when he discussed a full tang. And Kelly shared that bit of information with me, which I found very, very interesting. So they also say that the laminated steel mortar can't strike a ferro rod, which you've seen now that it actually can, even without having a sharpened spine. Now, can that knife batten? Well, these are supremely strong knives, believe it or not. And the beauty of it is that you are very, very likely to have this on you in the event. I'm going to cut this back down here again because I want to actually make a net needle out of this. This is a bit of green wood. I'm going to carve a net needle later on today. This is a piece of green sycamore. Okay, so I'll leave that to the side because I have a plan for that. Now, we have a bit of hardwood here, seasoned. You can hear that? It's quite knotty. The diameter of this is not quite wrist thick, but certainly this would be sufficient diameter to build shelter out of in a survival scenario, and suitable for firewood. Now that is battening down through that perfectly well, okay? No problems, it's quite knotty. So sometimes we have to, you know, take a look at what we actually need, and you know, Moore's put his name to these type of knives for good reason. So that's the laminated steel version of this, okay? And I love this little knife, it's a great little neck knife, but I just wanted to show you, really, I wanted to emphasize how you could use it in regards to striking a ferro rod. Now we have another bit of a stick here, and this is the model number 2. I really wish they made this in a laminated steel, because for my hand this handle suits me much better. Now on this knife I did sharpen up the spine on it, so it'll strike a ferro rod quite easily. But yet again, this tang does go all the way through, so they're quite different to the companion type, more where it would have a tang that continues about 3/4 of the way through. So yet again, if you're sensible enough with what you're doing, and as I said, this is plenty big for firewood that we would have to batten through, and we're hitting a knot here now. If you're sensible enough with what you're battening, another stick tang here, I love this knife, the Kellam Puko. But you can see there's a concurrency with all these blades. They're all there or thereabouts pan width, and yet again this has the full rat tail tang, all the way through, and it's peened off. So this will be a slightly more, I suppose, salubrious and expensive version of what a Morla can do, but perfectly good there for battening through this. Now we've hit quite a difficult little bit of a knot here, and it's, you know, it's doing its job. And we've come down to a very hard bit here, so let's see how it, we give it a little bit of a run and see how it goes. But these knives are quite strong, and it's important when you're going through and battling with these, that because they are a rat tail and the tang narrows off somewhat. Now ordinarily I wouldn't go through stuff like this, but this is, like, I mean, as tough as you're going to find, even tougher than you would ever ordinarily use any knife for. In fact, it could be embedded in that now. But I'm just using it to demonstrate how strong these knives actually are. And the only thing that you have to be a little bit cautious with these when you are battening with them is that you don't overemphasize putting weight on this end, on the handle end, because it has narrowed off and it is a weaker part of the blade. However, not weak, just weak for. But certainly they can be used as survival knives. Like, I mean, Morse Kahansky probably certainly brought this type of knife to Northern America and Canada, to anybody that's using it. Whether they like it or not, they're definitely have been influenced by Morse's opinion on knives. Cody Lundeen carries this knife sometimes, and he carries a Mora #1 a lot of the time, or nearly all the time. There's the Mora #2 beside us. So what I would say is you don't need to have, you know, €400 to spend on a knife. It's lovely to have, you know, it really is, and I always have been a great supporter of absolute full tang knives, unskeleton knives, for the simple purposes. A lot of the people that I teach survival to, they are not adept at it, so they're not survivalists per se. They're people that are following a particular line of hobby that puts them in harm's way and potentially might be in a survival scenario. So really what I want those type of students to have is a very, very strong knife that won't break. There'll be no mechanical error without a lot of experience and a lot of time in the job. So guys, I'd like to hear your comments and whatever you think. Thanks for dropping by, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.